Welcome to the SafetyPro Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our partners in safety. They make this podcast possible. So whenever you get an opportunity, go ahead and hit the links in the show notes. Go see what they have to offer for you. First up is Mighty Line Floor Tape. If you're interested in marking your facilities, maintaining your 5S program, ensuring the safety of your employees in your facilities, Mighty Line Tape has all the products that you need to make that happen. We're talking floor tape that is designed for forklift traffic, designed for foot traffic. We're talking custom signs with your own logos, by the way. Go to mightylinetape.com/podcast. See what they have to offer for you. By the way, when you get there, you can order a free sample of their incredible floor tape. That's mightylinetape.com/podcast. Let them know that we sent you. mightylinetape.com/podcast. Next up, of course, is the official safety services provider of the SafetyPro Podcast. I'm talking about none other than Aero Safety. Drew Hinton with Aero Safety has been a friend of the podcast for many years, and we are excited to partner with Aero Safety. If you're looking to have training done in your facility, assessments, audits, inspections, maybe it's program reviews and development, it doesn't matter. Whatever your safety needs are, Aero Safety has you covered. No canned programs that they dust off the shelf and repackage and resell. Every service they offer is customized to your business, your processes, the tasks your workers need to perform, and of course, it is to the highest safety standard. Go to aerosafetyus.com. Get a discount off your first quote when you mention you heard about them on the SafetyPro Podcast. Again, aerosafetyus.com. Let them know that we sent you. Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast. I have a special guest today. It is the one and only, my firstborn, my lovely daughter, Allison Hoffmann. Allie, welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. So we're going to talk about a topic that it's something that we think about a lot, but I don't know that we talk about it enough, and certainly not here on the podcast. And it's something that you're aware of course, but then you also had a class about this. So why don't we start with your introduction and what you're studying right now, and then that'll probably get us right into this topic.
Okay. So my name's Allison. I'm 24. I'm an occupational safety and health student at Columbia Southern, and I'm a preschool teacher in Cincinnati. And yeah, I just took a critical thinking class. I am maybe about halfway through my associate's degree at CSU. So yeah.
Nice. So that's where I went as well, as you know.
Yeah.
So critical thinking, kind of give us your take. What does critical thinking mean to you in the context of what you're studying? And in our case, occupational safety and health management.
So critical thinking is the ability to look at a situation objectively and not make assumptions. So just look at the facts only. And I guess in terms of safety, it's about evaluating the root cause of a problem and looking at all of the factors that go into the event or the circumstance and analyzing based on that and not based on fallacies, I guess.
So, that obviously the example that comes to mind is with investigations, but, we could blow this out to when we're looking at different ways to improve safety overall when we come to corrective and preventative actions, but also just designing for safety. We can think about how this could come into play when we have an idea that we want to promote. So we're going to craft every argument based on that idea.
Oh.
I have the puppy in here with me, and I don't know what she's doing over there,
I
but
heard her.
yeah, you did hear her.
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can get her close. I'll grab her and put her on screen. For anybody who's not watching this unfold, you can go ahead and head over to the Safety Pro Podcast community site. The link is in the show notes, and you can watch the video of all of our interviews for the podcasts for free. For those on podcast land, you're just going to have to imagine what my puppy would look like. So, all right, Allie. So back on track after the dog distraction. We were talking about how confirmation bias or other biases can come into play, not just with incident investigations, but other areas of managing safety in the workplace. What strategies can one use or plan to use to improve critical thinking skills and kind of avoid those some of those traps?
So I guess you'll just need to avoid looking at surface level causes, right? So instead you'll need to dig deeper and do a further analysis at the systems and the processes and even human behaviors to kind of come to a conclusion. So it's just kind of about keeping an open mind and not making assumptions and then not letting those assumptions guide your conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about human behavior, I think it's funny. I often joke with my colleagues about this. We, outside of work, we're all just people, wandering the earth, doing our thing. But for some reason, we get to the workplace and automatically we assume everybody is perfect without
Yeah.
fault. And the minute an employee makes a mistake, that leads to an injury, illness or property damage, something like that, and we're investigating it, we automatically go, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that," and we expect everybody to be without fault, and then we stop right there.
Hmm.
So understanding human behavior is critical thinking, and there are some tricks to help us get to that. We talk about it in our deep dive training as well, how to push past that surface level. Can you share an example? Do you have an example of how critical thinking might help us identify like a hidden risk or hazard or issue in the workplace?
Let's say there is a near miss, so nearly an accident or an injury involving a forklift. So a quick fix would be to retrain the worker or the employee. But if you used critical thinking, you would evaluate other potential causes for that near miss. So not just the training of the driver or the worker, but other behavior as well. So and other environmental factors. So the um, the lighting, surroundings, even um, how fast they had to work, if they had a deadline or something like that. So you would just have to consider all possible causes and not just single out one, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't make decisions in a vacuum, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're taking all kinds of things into consideration. We have different influences, drivers of our
Hmm.
behavior, not even our behavior, our decision making, which we see as behavior. So you're absolutely right. That's a great example. Let's say about, like, we're talking to safety professionals, and you're a young safety professional, young in the career um, side of things. It has nothing to do with age. Yeah, I talk to folks that are my age that are just getting into safety, and it's exciting. So let's say, as a safety professional, how can somebody who's just getting into safety talk about critical thinking, like with their team, for example, in a team environment?
Well, I think having an outside perspective would actually help in that situation. Not really being too deep into the safety field, because you really have to consider that people come from different backgrounds and different cultures and different ways of life, and they might not consider something that you would consider to be like you said, we don't think in a vacuum. So if you see somebody doing something a certain way and you think I wouldn't do it that way. Well, they wouldn't think that they would do it your way.
Right.
So, yeah.
Nice. No, that's a great example. Um, Diverse perspectives. And
Hmm.
I always enjoyed working with anybody, engineers to maintenance technicians. They all have a different take or a view on even solving a problem that we're trying to solve. We may have an answer as a safety professional that to make something safe, but it may not be workable. It may not be
Yeah.
something workers can work with. So always include workers involved, in your conversations about solving safety problems at work. The workers are
Hmm.
the ones that have to do the job. So they're pretty much going to be our customer in that regard.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift. You said this all started, and we were talking before we decided to record something. And congratulations on your first safety podcast, by the way.
Thanks.
One one of many, I hope. So I'll try to
Okay.
rope you into some more.
Sure.
But what role do you think education plays in developing critical thinking skills for safety professionals? Do you think it's covered enough, or do you think it's getting better based on your experience recently?
Um, well, I think CSU is a great school. And I think the professors are all really fair. And the critical thinking class was great. Um, and even some of my other general education classes, you can kind of see how they would be applicable to safety, like ethics. Um,
Yeah, we
but I
haven't even
think,
cracked that one yet.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
another
that's,
episode.
that might be a good episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I think it's just taking a critical thinking class, taking an ethics class. It's really about learning what you can apply to real life scenarios. So, if we're talking about communication, or construction safety, or just any class ranging all over the spectrum, it's just about how we can apply it to safety. And like I said, CSU is a good school for that,
hmm,
because they do set you up for success in the industry. Not a lot of universities will do that. They'll kind of guide you through open-ended, like communications degree, or like marketing or something. But CSU is definitely really targeted about helping people out in the workforce when they get to the workforce.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, we're no affiliation at all with CSU other than having gone there myself, and Allie obviously enrolled currently as well. But a testament to the value of higher education in certain fields, right? In certain
Yeah.
disciplines. So how do you balance theoretical knowledge, because you're kind of in the middle of this with the
Mhm.
book learning, we call it book learning, right? How do you balance that theoretical knowledge with real world applications when it comes to critical thinking? And it doesn't even have to be related to safety, because you have to use it out in our lives every day. um, but you see it, you read it, you went through the course, and but
Mhm.
were you able to make a connection of, okay, I see how this could benefit me?
Yeah, I think so. I think another part of that is learning how you would then communicate it to other people. Not everybody learns things the same way. So I think if you take what you learn in college, a good skill to pull from that would be how to then further communicate it to others, especially if you're going into safety management, human resources, anything like that. You have to be able to take what you learn and apply it to a group of people that might not have learned it, or might not have learned it the same way. They might have just lived it,
Yeah,
which is a lot of students at CSU um, are already coming from the workforce. So
right.
it's firefighters and police officers, and it's kind of funny. I If I went to the University of Cincinnati, I would be old for a freshman, but at Columbia Southern, I'm kind of really young for a freshman. I mean, I'm in class with people who are like 60 years old, um, some people who are 18, or some people who are across the world. So I think that's probably a skill that their professors that they hire have as well, is being able to teach a wide variety of people, which is good in turn for us, because then we take that into account as well.
Yeah, that's something. Another thing I don't think is talked about enough. I remember interviewing a couple of years ago somebody from I don't think he's with CSU anymore. He may have retired, but we were talking about what we called the non-traditional student, right?
Hmm.
Um, the non-traditional student is somebody like me. When I
Hmm.
went, I got out of the fire service and I decided I wanted to get into occupational safety and health. I had to start all over.
Yeah.
And so I was 30. You were just born.
Yeah.
You were a baby. I had an infant and I was finishing my bachelor's and
Yeah.
rolled right into the master's program.
Yeah.
So the non-traditional student is, I don't know why. I don't think I would call them non-traditional anymore because anymore it seems to be you're always going to have the high school grad goes right to college. You're always going to have
Hmm.
that group, right? But I think this group we're talking about is more common than it used to be. It's not as strange. It's not as weird.
Hmm.
Um, so you started at another university and
Yeah.
transferred.
Yeah.
How is there a different? And again, this isn't a testament for any particular university for or against.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about because you're going to go into the workforce and you're going to be shaped by some of these experiences. What is the biggest difference do you think with being around everybody who's 18 just came straight from high school right into college for the most part? You're going to have a few outliers. Um, versus what you just described, being in a group, whether it's a class or a working group, where there are folks finding their second career, coming out of the military, fire service, or some just right out of high school.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference for you?
Um, I think it's a lot more valuable to
Yeah,
hear different perspectives. I really think at UC, you hear you're sitting in a lecture hall and you hear the same perspective all across the room. And there'll be a couple people, like you said, a couple outliers, a couple people who have a different perspective mainly, but um, I think it's so valuable to be hearing from all sorts of different people. A lot more valuable, honestly, than
yeah.
more of a traditional university setting. But it is a big difference.
Nice. And when you
Yeah.
said lecture hall, I remember some of those where you get lectured. That's why they
Yeah.
call it a lecture hall. You get
Yeah.
talked to. You just
Hmm.
have to remember the things, and then we're going to ask you about them on a test, and then you know this thing, right? Um, what the difference between that and I'm going to bring it back to our overall topic here in a second. The difference between that and the experience that you're having, where you're actually contributing to the conversation and you're not graded so much based on being able to repeat back exactly what they think the
Hmm.
professor thinks, but you taking this piece of information and then digesting it, explaining how it applies to you and how you view it, and it not being so wrong. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Is that did that hit you different, or did you notice it when you experienced it, or like how did that work for you?
In my classes now, we have discussion boards. I think that's true for all universities, that they all do discussion boards, especially for the online classes. But um, it's a class where you participate and you do assignments rather than just listen to the professor talk every day. It's definitely a lot. It's a lot more valuable. I think it did, and it's everyone's different. Everyone learns differently, and some people succeed in university settings and some people don't. I found didn't see myself succeeding in that setting, but at CSU, I mean, I just feel like I'm kind of set up for success. I do the assignments, I participate, and it's definitely a lot more valuable.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like that too. I apologize for passing that along if that's what happened, but I needed to kind of be a combination of learn on my own at my
Yeah.
own pace, but then also have this non-structured way of having these discussions with the professors versus being like direct instruction, like
Yeah.
sitting there, listen, and then take a test and then move on.
Yeah.
That just was brutal
Yeah.
for
I
me.
can't really do that.
Yeah.
Well, the critical thinking course it's my favorite class I've taken so far.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And that brings us back to that topic
yeah.
is
It
that's an example of fostering critical thinking
mhm.
is just the way the approach to that education in this case is our
Mhm.
example. Just that approach fosters critical thinking and allows
Mhm.
for critical thinking,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
I think we
absolutely.
could use a lot more of in society, not just a workplace, but
Yeah.
especially in higher education.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And even just instead of I just can't really imagine being lectured about critical thinking because then how are you thinking? Where's the
Right.
thinking part of that? If just
Yes,
listening.
exactly. Yeah, I
Um,
think it's just a philosophy class at that point where you just
well, even ethics, even contemporary ethics, a lot of it was just here's this ethical dilemma. What do you think? And it's not,
and there's no wrong yeah, it was
yeah.
just really to get you to start, thinking how to think,
Mhm.
not what to think, right?
Mhm. And at first, I wasn't even too keen on the ethical dilemmas. I like, why am I considering this to be a situation?
That'll
Why
never
would I
happen.
ever be in a scenario where I'd have to pull a train track and choose to run over my Mercedes or a baby? I do it. It's never going to happen to me. But if you take that and you take out those factors, it's not a Mercedes, it's not a baby, it's not a train track, but it's a workplace and you have to implement this safety procedure, but it would in turn hinder efficiency or profit or something. So which one do you choose?
Yeah.
So all of it has been really applicable and valuable.
Well, I think you just set us up for our next discussion. We'll call it should we call it our university sessions? I don't know. We should call it something
Yeah.
where we talk and we talk not so much about a class you took, but a topic from the perspective of somebody who's just getting into this profession. Because even
Yeah.
old timers need to remember some of this stuff and
It could
get
be
back to
different
these
now.
basics. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, Allie. Well, thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
and I hope that we're going to have you back soon. I'm going to
Okay.
nag you
Okay.
every time you come over. I'm
Yeah.
going to nag you to get on the podcast. Um, so look, everybody, you could watch anybody who's listening again. You can watch the video on the Safety Pro Podcast community site. You can also, if you join, premium members can comment, drop your own posts as well, and certainly comment on this episode. And Allie is in there in the community as well. Hopefully, she will take on a more active role here soon in the community and collaborate with other safety pros. And be sure to give her a shout out if you're in the community as well. And I will talk to you on the next Safety Pro podcast.